Okay, here we are with another episode of Pod Talk TV, and normally Pod Talk TV was going to be about mostly about marijuana, but we've done so many shows on marijuana that we're now trying to give people information on how to deal with the courts and how to deal with the political system. I mean, we're not giving legal advice here, but we're given all the research that we've done since I've been in trouble so many times that I've now learned a lot of information, and I want to pass the information along to people so that they don't have to make a lot of the same mistakes I've made to learn a lot of this information. And Paula was reading the Uniform Scrutinization Scheme. Securitization Scheme. And we're going to pick up with that because this is such important stuff. If people really knew and understood how the courts are scamming everybody and how they're making money off us every way possible, if more people understood that, we could maybe bring our courts back in line with the Constitution and protect people's rights. So I'm going to give this back to Paula and let her pick up where we just left off from that last show that you just saw.
Great. So you remember from the first show, as I was reading, they were saying it's the Uniform Securitization Scheme, and they also called it the USS, the Uniform Securitization Scam. So it's a lot to wrap your head around, but it's very important to understand it, because once you've understood it, you can never go back into the ignorance that you've been in that's allowed such travesties as stripping your rights and so on. It has to do with the underpinning of the economy. And again, once you understand it, you'll see that the remedy is close at hand, and the remedy is due process in court. So here we are on the 14 pages, and it's section 9, creation of a trust. And for those of you who listened to my shows with Raja, the forensic examiner, he talked about the importance of not having an empty trust first, all set to go, that a trust is only created after there's an asset. Okay, when property is transferred, a trust relationship is created. The recipient has an obligation to perform in some fashion, such as processing an instrument, protecting the property, or delivering a bill. The recipient is therefore a trustee. Section 401 of the Uniform Trust Code confirms that a trust is created upon transfer of property. Section 401, methods of creating trust. A trust may be created by 1. Transfer of property to another person as trustee. As with any conveyance of property, the deposit of the pledge creates a trust in which the recipient has a trustee obligation to process the instrument. This is the so-called birth certificate trust. It is not the result of some bureaucrat recording a trust, but the natural consequence of a transfer. The birth trust is identified by the original birth number assigned by the county registrar. Again, you see the importance of the county level in the creation of the financial scheme that our country operates under. There's a lot of power at the county level. As you will see, this number represents a variety of accounts, trusts, securities, and certificates, all derived from the original pledge. Okay, section 10, reissue of secondary securities, the birth bond. The first security issued from the Treasury account is the birth bond, which the United States uses to underwrite its currency. Like the pledge, the birth bond is a certificated book entry security future, a bet against your future performance, which is represented, noticed, into the public by a certificate, the short form birth certificate. Like any bond, the birth bond is nothing more than evidence of debt, evidence that the estate, your labor, is the surety for the infant's portion of the public debt. As you may suspect, the purpose of the birth bond is to leverage more securities using the USS template described in this article. The profiteering begins when the birth bond is traded dollar for money issued by the Federal Reserve. You want to explain it a little better? Because I sense I'm losing people. You know, what
No,
it is
go
about
ahead.
the birth certificate. We'll jump into
Okay.
kind of, because Mary
What
Lou
she's
said she
saying
was...
here- what she's saying here, she was talking about the birth certificate. When they put a birth certificate in your name, they securitized that birth certificate, or they started a trust, and that trust is
Your share of the...
is your share of it cuts two ways. One is you're an owner and you have a share in the United States, and the other is, as a shareholder, you have obligation to the debts of the United States. So if the politicians keep running up debts, when you get your birth certificate, they've already started you out in debt, and that's why they tax so high, and that's why they're constantly giving you tickets and picking your pockets. But they started a trust, and the trust is basically empty.
Right.
But go ahead, read on.
As you may suspect, the purpose of the birth bond is to leverage more securities using the USS template described in this article. The profiteering begins when the birth bond is traded dollar for money issued by the Federal Reserve, permitting Treasury to place the money into circulation under the premise that it is backed by people's full faith and credit.
Now I'll jump in. What they're saying there is that they use your name and your birth certificate to print money. Since our money is not backed by gold or silver, they're backing it with your labor. So the more money they print, the more labor you have to produce in order to cover the money they're printing. So at birth, they're already starting to enslave you using your birth certificate and printing money in your name.
Okay, the bond is transmitted by the Fed to the depository trust company where it is placed into quote-unquote safekeeping for the purpose of reissuing a vast array of derivative securities, each one written against the pledge and designed to elicit your consent for profiteering. And that's why Joe said one way out on this is that you weren't informed. Your mother was not informed at the time of your birth that by giving you over to create a, would you say, a corporation in your name?
Yeah, they incorporated you.
They incorporated you, and you were supposed to be getting your share of the commonwealth. So what you say is that fraud was done because your mother was not fully informed that the full faith and credit that standing behind our currency was something that was done without your consent and really without full disclosure to your mother. So that's our way out of this. Okay, part 10, registration. One of the most seemingly benign cogs in the uniform securitization scam, registration, is the process by which a creditor registers a security interest against the owner. And again, you'll remember from last week, you would think that ownership is a great thing, but according to law, ownership also means liability. And that's why you get stuck with the bill, unless you wake up to what's going on and stand up as the belligerent claimant and say, this is not my bill, and you figure out whose bill it is. And, you know, when we talk about the scam going on with the mortgages, 14 million people have been foreclosed, families have been foreclosed. If they really understood what had happened to them, they could start to discharge the debt of the United States to the people of the United States. That's who the debt is to. But you are deceived about it. Okay, registration is a pernicious method used to take control of legalized property by a genuine or presumed secured party under protection of the legal franchise and its incorporated judiciary. Here are some excerpts from the 12-paragraph operational agreements published by the Depository Trust Company, DTC, to govern DTC direct and indirect participants.
Let me jump in 1 second again here. Now, when she was saying, when your mother was tricked into signing the birth certificate, your mother wasn't informed that she was putting you up as surety for the debt of the United States. Now, fraud was committed on the contract with your mother because she was never informed that that was being done. And when they put your name in all capital letters, they created a corporation in your name. And like when they bring you into court, if you look on any papers you've ever gotten to go to court, it's always in all capital letters. If you look at your driver's license, it's in all capital letters. If you look at your Social Security card, it's in all capital letters. Look at your credit card, it's in all capital letters. They're doing that in your name as a corporation. And because the government doesn't have rights over the sovereign human being, which is the way you wrote your name in school, with a capital first letter and then all small letters after that. And then your last name, capital first letter, all small letters. That's you, the flesh and blood human being. They created a fictitious you, and they charged the fictitious you as a corporation, and they hold you responsible for the corporation that's been charged. That's how they can put you in jail. That's how they can ticket you. That's how they can tax you. That's how they can pick your pockets. That's how they do it. Now, if you want to get around that, you got to let the government know no corporation was ever started. I never signed any paperwork that started a corporation in all capital letters. That's not me. I'm a flesh and blood human being. My mother fraud was committed when my mother signed the birth certificate because she wasn't informed of stuff in the contract that it was a contract. She was not told. Therefore, you're not responsible for that. And the trust that was started in your name was mismanaged by the trustees who ran up debts in your name, and that was all mismanaged. Therefore, you don't owe that debt. The trustees that mismanaged it should be held responsible. That's all the politicians that have run this country into debt. They have done it on the backs of the American people. When the American people wake up and learn what's happened, we can now say we're not responsible for that debt. These people who've committed fraud, the politicians who committed fraud in our name, the politicians ran up that debt, and they should be held responsible. And the banks, every time you get a credit card, when you go down and sign that credit card, or when you get a mortgage and you sign that mortgage, the bank does not give you the money. What they do is they go to the Federal Reserve and they use your signature to tell the Federal Reserve to print up. If you were getting a $100,000 loan for a house, they tell the Federal Reserve to print up $100,000. Then that $100,000 is given to the bank. So now the bank is giving you money on your signature that the Federal Reserve printed up.
Credit.
Printed up in your name. Right, well, the money is credit. The paper that they give you is actually credit. It's debt notes. It's not real money because it's not backed by gold or silver. Now, when they give you that credit money, the bank is giving you your own credit. They're not giving you the credit money from their account. But yet when they say to you, after they give you your money that the Federal Reserve printed it up from your signature, they now say you owe us, and you owe us with interest. The bank is committing fraud and scamming everybody. All these houses that they've taken, 14 million houses they've taken illegally because they never gave the money to the people. It came from their own signature. That's what the securitization stuff that she's talking about. It's a bit complicated, but the more you read it and the more you understand it, we recommend everybody start studying this stuff. And eventually we're going to put it up on our website, freedomfirstparty.net. If you want to put freedomfirstparty.net up. It's not up yet, but if you people stay tuned into that Freedom First Party, when we get our stuff up, there's going to be lots of legal research that we have done so you people can study this stuff for yourselves and maybe keep from having your house repossessed, keep from going to jail, keep the government from picking your pockets. Go ahead.
Yeah, and start creating real wealth. Just to kind of punctuate this dry studying, I'll say that Eustace Mullins, who was the biographer of Ezra Pound, the great poet, when he was a political prisoner in St. Elizabeth's Hospital, was told by Ezra Pound to go to the Library of Congress and do research on the Federal Reserve. And he eventually wrote a book, Secrets of the Federal Reserve. Towards the end of his life, Eustace Mullins came to New York. He stayed with me one night with Jesse Lee. And the reason for the visit was they were going to be going down to Water Street to actually check out the physical location of the Depository Trust Company, DTC, and they were surprised that I had never heard of it. But we're giving you a very deep level of understanding how the economy is functioning, and in order to have the confidence that you can stand up in court, stand up with your neighbors, your family, to start to change it, so that we can get back to creating real wealth as the Constitution sets aside, not fabricated securitizations of every cash flow that there is. Okay, 1, the Depository Trust Company, DTC, New York, New York, will act as securities depository for the securities. The securities. The securities will be issued as fully registered securities, registered in the name of Seed and Company, C-E-D-E and Company. Who gives a very good explanation of all of this is Gene Keating, and he gives the idea of the history, like to seed property, to seed land is something that was done at the beginning of our nation, but you begin to see the vestiges of this in names that exist today. So they're registered in the name of Seed and Company, DTC's partnership nominee, or such other name as may be requested by an authorized representative of DTC, in other words, insiders. Okay, 3, purchases of securities. I don't know what happened in number 2, but they're just highlighting this. Purchases of securities under the DTC system must be made by or through direct participants, which will receive a credit for the securities on DTC's records. The ownership interest of each actual purchaser of each security, quote-unquote, beneficial owner, is in turn to be recorded on the direct and indirect participants' records. Beneficial owners will not receive written confirmation from DTC of their purchase. They won't get written confirmation, so that means all of this is going on in your name without your knowledge. There it is in black and white. The birth bond is registered to the benefit of DTC. DTC will not even mention the beneficial owner, the beneficiary, in its records. By combining the terms beneficiary, the sole party with the right to enjoy the fruits of the security, with the owner, the party that's liable for all the debts and injuries caused by the security, you have been reduced to the lowest common denominator, an owner. Forget the adjective beneficial. You don't matter at all. Your only right is to order the sale of the security to the next hapless owner. If this is hard to accept, ask yourself who suffers when the value of a stock certificate registered to DTC suddenly falls? The owner. Who pays the margin? The owner. Who sells at a loss? The owner. Who makes a profit on the sale by having locked in its position as holder of the security? The Depository Trust Company.
Let me jump in here. Did you catch that? What they're doing is they're securitizing stuff in your name. They're trading it on Wall Street, and then if it loses money, they charge you, and it goes against you. So they got to collect from you. But if it makes money, the DTC keeps the profits. So all the money that they're making in your name, they get to keep, and they get to run up debts and put the debts on your back. That's why your taxes are so high. That's why they got cops out on the street constantly giving tickets. That's all to keep sucking the money from the people to cover the debts that they're running up. but the investments that they're making in your name, they're keeping the profits from. So it's all fraud that they're committing, and the American people are getting screwed. And this was set up by the World Bank, who's declared war on the United States. The World Bank and the International Monetary Fund control our Federal Reserve. It's not our Federal Reserve, it's a private corporation. And that private corporation is just to suck money out of America and feed the World Bank. And the World Bank is destroying the economy. It's actually making war on the United States and destroying our economy and our constitutional way of life. Go on.
Okay, and there's always a remedy, there's always a way out, and that's why we're studying this. Conversely, as stated by DTC, the direct participant, the final institution that made the deposit, in this case the Fed, will be credited with the value of the security. This means that DTC will post the birth bond on its books as a credit to the direct participant, not you, allowing the direct participant to enjoy the increase in net worth to borrow against the value, to post between 3 and 10% of the bond's value to the direct participant's reserves, thereby allowing the direct participant to lend out at least 9 times the value of the securities using your pledge as the source of credit. So while your estate pays all of the bills assessed against the straw man, the Fed enjoys the value of your pledge. It is through the book entries described in this article, in particular the posting of value in the reserve accounts of Federal Reserve banks, that the public taps into your estate without your knowledge. In other words, if a court wishes to assess your estate, it deposits the indictment security into an account opened in the name of your straw man and charges the estate by issuing an arrest warrant security to bring you in for the purpose of consenting to the assessment. Meanwhile, it is trading against the reserve posting by issuing and trading a case bond issued from the same account.
Okay, let me jump in here again. When she keeps saying straw man, the straw man is that all capital. They created a fictitious you. That's the all cap. When they have your name in all capital letters, that's what they're talking about when she says straw man. So when you go into court, they're charging the straw man, right? And they're bonding that charge and putting it on Wall Street. So the courts are making money off every indictment. So when they find you guilty, actually they find the straw man guilty, then they hold you responsible as you own the straw man. Therefore, you are the one that has to pay, whether it's go to jail or get your pockets picked by a fine. It's all a scam. That all these courts are commercial courts. They're not constitutional courts. And when you go into court and you think, oh, I have rights protected by the Constitution. If you try to say that to most of the judges in these courts, they'll tell you, we don't want you to mention the Constitution in this court. And the reason they do that is because they're not constitutional courts, so they can't rule on constitutional law. They're commercial courts. They're set up to pick your pockets.
But it only works by your consent, and that's why you have to become informed, right? You
Right.
can get out of those commercial courts.
But if you go into court and say, that name in all capital letters, that's not me, fraud was committed on my mother when that account was started in my name, my mother never understood the contract or was never informed of the contract that she was signing when she signed my birth certificate, and I've never registered with any state attorney general as that corporation. Therefore, that's a fictitious corporation, and I hold no responsibility for any debts or anything incurred by that corporation. I'm a flesh and blood human being. Now, most of the courts will try to shut you down. You really need to study this stuff and know what you're talking about, because they'll try to trick you back into having jurisdiction. They have jurisdiction over the straw man. They don't have jurisdiction over we the people according to the Constitution. It's all statutes, and statutes don't apply to we the people, but statutes apply to corporations or persons. A person is, in legal terms, can be a corporation. It can be a flesh and blood human being, but it doesn't have the same standing as a flesh and blood human being. If you go into court and the judge calls you a person, uses person, it's time, you should always correct the judge and say, wait a minute, I'm not a person, I am a flesh and blood human being. We're going to put all this stuff up eventually on our website. You really need to study it. I wouldn't advise you people to run right into court and start trying this stuff, because they can easily trick you, and unless you really know what you're doing. But it's not that hard to learn. We will put up all the research we've done so you can study it and learn it. And I've used it in court a number of times, and it actually works. It jams them up, and it's very hard for them to prosecute you when you're a flesh and blood human being, because these commercial courts don't have jurisdiction over a flesh and blood human being.
Do you want to put in a plug for Rod Class, who wants to fix the problem?
Oh, yeah.
Some opportunists take advantage of this to make money.
Yeah,
We're
also,
not about that.
this is an election year, and all you people out there are going to vote in the same criminals that have been picking your pockets and doing this stuff. It's time for a big change in America. When you go out and you see all these signs out there, the guy with the biggest sign has the most money, and he's probably being backed by the banks. So I would vote for the guy, if I were to recommend, which I can't really do, but I know I'm not voting for any of these people. A guy named Rod Class is running for president.
Rodney, R-O-D-N-E-Y, D-A-L-E-C-L-A-S-S.
Now, he's a write-in candidate. I'm going to vote for Rodney Dale Class just because Rodney Dale Class actually wants to bring us back to a constitutional republic. When our politicians keep saying democracy, democracy, democracy. When the founding fathers set up this country, they didn't set up a democracy. They set up a republic. This country is a republic with a constitution that is the law of our land. And a democracy means 51% can make the other 49% illegal. But in a republic with a constitution, we have one law for all. The president is subject to that same constitutional law as the wino on the corner. So we support Rodney. Me and Paula are both going to vote for Rodney Dale Class as a write-in for president. And if enough people did that, we could bring back our constitutional republic. Now, as far as all these local elections, I would recommend to all you people out there, vote out these guys that have been in there for a long time, who are all hooked in with the World Bank, the big corporations, the big pharmaceutical companies that are controlling our government right now. So I would vote for, if everybody out there voted for the candidate that least had a chance to win, we could change the politics in this country. Don't vote for the guy who's the shoe-in or the sure winner, because he's been financed by the World Bank and the world. Whether you vote for Obama or you vote for Mitt Romney, you are voting for the World Bank, who is picking your pockets. So look out there and look for somebody, the guy that has the least chance of winning, and put his name in, even if you have to write it in. And if you don't like any of those people, write your own name in.
Oh, you might also put up Marbletown October 29th, because one way to learn these arguments is to listen to people as they're arguing them in court. So October 29th at 5 p.m. would be a good time to listen to Joe as he argues the driver's license.
Right. I was driving, a lot of you people who've been following our show know I was driving with no license, no registration, and I put my own sovereign plates on the car. And I have all the law that says that I'm within legal grounds to do it. Now, when they tell you that driver's license is mandatory, the government has lied to you about that. That's so they could get you to sign that driver's license, which is another contract which makes it so that they can pull you over anytime they want and give you a ticket if your tail light is out. Instead of just saying, fix your tail light, they now can say, oh, you have a tail light out. We're going to charge you $100 for the tail light out and costs. That's just a way to pick your pocket. If your tail light is out, a police officer should say, excuse me, sir, your tail light is out. Please fix it because it's, so people can see, and have a nice day, and he should walk away, not give you a ticket, and you have to go to court, lose a day's work. It's all about picking your pockets. All these towns are just financing themselves, and the politicians keep running up more and more bills. The more they run into debt, the more tickets they have to give, the more they got to raise your taxes. So they don't mind running into debt. They run in debt purposely so that they can just keep taking it from you, so you never get ahead. And you can't pay off your mortgage because you're so busy paying taxes and fines, so now they can repossess your home. And the pharmaceutical companies and the medical establishment is set up so when you get sick, they can drain all your wealth so you don't leave anything to your kids, so your kids are starting out in debt. The whole system is set up to keep you in debt so that they profit and you never get ahead. The 1% have all the money, and they're making it so that there's no chance of you people out there joining the 1%.
Yeah, and the problem with the 1% is like a cancer. Eventually, it's going to kill its host, and so everybody suffers. That's why equal protection and due process has been valued in all great societies. Okay, Section 12, reissue of secondary securities, the Social Security bond. The next security issued by Treasury against the pledge is the Master Social Security bond. The purpose of the bond is to create a trust upon redeposit, which will be used as a vessel to transmit public debt. Entice the estate to act publicly as surety for your portion of the public debt and transmit funds to the English Crown Trust. Section 13, opening an account, Social Security. Following the Uniform Securitization scam blueprint, Treasury authorizes the opening of an account to receive the Social Security bond for the customary purpose of leveraging securities. 14, reducing status to a number, SSN. Unlike the birth account maintained by the county and the Secretary of the Treasury, the SS account is assigned a new name and number, John Henry Doe, SSN 123-456789, and that's in all capital.
SSN is Social Security number.
Right, and it's all in all caps, so we've got another corporation created here. For the purpose of identifying various derivative bonds to be issued from the account against your estate, your pledge. 15, recording a general deposit relinquishing title to the SS bond. As previously described regarding the birth bond, the Master's Social Security bond is deposited generally into the SS account. 16, creating a trust, Social Security trust. As with any transfer of property, the deposit of the SS bond creates a trust relationship. Over the years, the SS Trust, John Henry Smith, ID number 123-45-6789, has become notorious, but the purpose of the trust is worth repeating. The SS Trust will be used as a vessel to transmit public debt, entice the estate to act publicly as surety for your portion of the public debt, and transmit funds to the English Crown Trust. The SS Trust is a manifestation of debt. It is debt and nothing more. Internalizing that understanding is helpful to returning control from public officials to the rightful beneficiary that issued the pledge. The trust directives, the terms of the trust, are all the rules and regulations compiled in United States Code and the Code of Federal Regulations. And guess who is obligated to obey them? You. Even though you're supposed to be putting all of these government employees to service for protecting your rights and the value of your property, your equity. But they've managed to turn it around through legal sleight of hand, which of course will all end once you understand what's happening. It's like a magician doing a trick. Once somebody's showing you how the trick is done, you're not fooled anymore. Okay, 17, presumptions. The Social Security Trust is the vehicle used by public officials to plunder the estate. Upon deposit of the Social Security bond, the Department of the Treasury, through the Internal Revenue Service is the trustee of record. But the government bank would rather be the beneficiary. In order to presume that the United States is the beneficiary, Treasury presumes that the strawman account is also a trustee of the SS Trust, with the obligation to perform all of the trustee's duties under the public trust. After you accept offers to operate as the trustee on 3 occasions, the presumption is fulfilled. From then on, the straw man will be created as a vehicle for transmitting public debt assessments to the estate by charging the straw man for the liability. So that must mean, do you understand the charges, where that comes from?
Right.
You want to explain that?
When you go to court, when you go into court, the judge will say, do you understand the charge against you? That's a trick. They're talking about money. They're saying, do you understand the charge against you? If you say, yes, I understand the charge against me, you've now agreed to that charge. When I go into court and they say, do you understand the charges against you? I always say, I do not stand under these charges, which means I'm not accountable for the charges that you're running up in my name. They don't tell you that that's what it is. You think in terms, when you go to court, you think in terms of Webster's dictionary. When they talk to you in court, they're not talking to you Webster's dictionary, they're talking legal speak. When they say, do you understand the charges against you, you think in terms of Webster. Yes, I understand the charges. But what they're really saying is, do you stand under these charges? And the charges they're talking about are money. So they're saying, do you accept this debt that we've run up in your name? And when you say, I understand the charges, you just said, I stand under these charges and I'm going to pay the debt. So when they say we're going to fine you, you've just agreed to it when you said you understood the charges. So I always say when I go into court, I do not stand under these charges. And it jams the judges up. They don't know what to do. And if you just keep saying, I don't stand under these charges, I'm a flesh and blood human being. Another trick they do is they say, do you plead guilty or not guilty? Well, first of all, you can't prove a not guilty, a negative. How do you prove a negative? You can't. So that's a trick. Secondly, if you say, I'm guilty, well, then you just hung yourself. And if you say, I'm not guilty, then the prosecutor's going to say, well, I say he is guilty. Now, you're saying you're not, he's saying you are, therefore we need a judge, and the case is on, so someone can make a decision, and always the decision is going to come out that you're guilty, and they're going to pick your pockets. So what I also say when they say, do you plead guilty or not guilty, I again say, I don't stand under these charges. And that jams them up. And what's the other one I say for guilty or not guilty?
No contest?
No, nothing, no contest. Never say no contest. That's a loser too.
Innocent?
Well, yeah, you can say, I'm innocent of any charges. That also is better than not guilty.
It's really all about understanding how these accounts are manipulated in court. You win in court by understanding what's really going on, and what's really going on, it's about picking your pockets that are so deep you didn't even know you had these deep pockets, but they know you do.
Right.
And they're the trustees. They're there supposedly to administer your estate, but what they're doing is they're raiding your estate. And now, with the devastation throughout the country, Constitution Man has said that he has seen war-torn zones in the world that are in better shape than a lot of American foreclosed neighborhoods. They're very, it's a very bad scene, and this is why, because they're fabricating this artificial scheme.
And they're not telling you when they gave you the birth certificate was a title, we the people own America. When we had birth certificates, that's all like your certificate that says you own this country. Now, as owners of this country is a very wealthy country. There's a certain percentage of that wealth in every one of our names in an account someplace hidden that they don't even let you know. There's millions of dollars in all our names. Now, instead of you being able to tap into that, the banks can tap into that in your name. The courts can tap into that in your name. Social Security can tap into that in your name, and you didn't even know that they're tapping into your wealth. And then they're giving you a bill for what they're tapping into. So they're beating you both ways. They're taking the money that's rightfully, the credit that's rightfully yours as the wealth of America, and they're also picking your pocket at the same time for any money that you've made working for a living, your hard-earned labor. So they're stealing from you from two different directions at the same time, and very few of you people out there in television land are even aware of it. And I haven't been aware of it for most of my life. Only since I've been dealing with all these court cases and studying law and studying this stuff and doing the research have I found out a lot of this stuff. And what I'm saying is not unique. What me and Paula are telling you is research that we've gotten from quite a few other people who've researched it even better than us. Go ahead.
But they lay it out so nicely. The stranglehold of the uniform securitization scheme on our lives is broken when we reverse the process and use the SS Trust to transmit funds from the estate to the assessing party upon our express authorization. The name of this process is set-off. So we have to learn, I guess, some type of set-off in court, or maybe that's what we've been stumbling on. The uniform in uniform. Every public transaction mimics the uniform securitization scam. During the $700 billion bailout of 2008, Treasury issued 700B in bonds. The Fed issued 700B of U.S. money. The bonds were exchanged for the funds and then deposited with DTC following the USS model. When a prosecutor lodges an indictment with a court, the court opens an account. The indictment or information is deposited generally, and an arrest warrant is issued against the indictment, which is presumed to be backed by the pledge as manifested in the estate. When an attorney lodges a complaint with a court, the court opens an account. The complaint is deposited generally, and a summons is issued against the indictment, which is presumed to be backed by the pledge as manifested in the estate. When you make a withdrawal from at a bank, the bank endorses your draft paid to the order of, thereby creating a new security which it posts in its books and exchanges for Federal Reserve notes, securities of equivalent value. When you issue a mortgage promissory note, the bank opens an account, deposits the note, generally thereby taking title to the funds, posts it as an asset and offsetting liability at the full value of the note to the bank, which includes the value of all future interests, and issues a bank check to the seller in the lower face value of the note, uneven exchange, thereby leaving a balance owed to the maker, which generally goes unclaimed. The purchase of groceries is also a well-designed exchange of securities, Federal Reserve notes, a bank draft or a credit card invoice, securities futures, for a cash receipt. In the present economic system of credit swaps, the theft of the groceries without providing equal value is ignored. It's the securities, stupid. All of these transactions are examples of how the USS manifests in our lives. Here's the section on charging. To charge is to draw funds. How does the public levy the estate to pay an assessment? The answer is right in front of our face. They charge the straw man account 123-45-6789. Might we follow?
Wait, again, the straw man account, that's your name in all capital letters, and the numbers she read, that's your Social Security number. They created a fictitious corporation in your name, and they're charging that. And then they hold you responsible for that fictitious corporation until you learn how to say, I'm not that corporation, and I will not be held responsible for the fraud that's been perpetrated in that fake name. You didn't create that name. You didn't start a corporation as that name. Therefore, why are they holding you responsible for that?
But you have great power because you're the one that can undo this. Nothing less than a sovereign can undo this. And in order to undo it, you have to learn how it was done in the first place.
And you need to learn how to assert your sovereignty. According to our Constitution, when we, the original Declaration of Independence, when we threw out the king, we said we're not going to have a king here. We, the people, will be sovereigns. A sovereign, when I keep saying sovereign, it means sovereign over self. In this country, we're all sovereigns without subjects. It means I'm a king, she's a queen, you're a king and queen out there in television land, but there's nobody under you that you can boss around. But as a sovereign, no one can tell you what to do, what to eat, drink, smoke, how to travel in your automobile. So many things. You can break free from the slavery that they've put you under when you learn how to assert your sovereignty. And in order to be able to assert your sovereignty, you should learn how they're scamming you. When you learn how they're scamming you, you then can break free of it. And that's what we're about, trying to bring this country back to a free country where the people are sovereigns and not slaves. They have enslaved us through sleight of hand, through trickery, through your birth certificate, your Social Security number, and every time you sign a credit card, a mortgage, any of that stuff that you sign, they're giving you paper that's worthless. It's not backed by anything. And they're transferring it around, and they're creating all kinds of debt with this worthless paper, and then they're holding you responsible for it, and they're saying your labor has to cover these debts that they've run up in your name. That's why you can work for 20 years, 30 years. You think you're going to retire and have money when you retire. You're not going to. It's all a scam. They're going to find a way to after you work for them for 40 years, that you die broke. It's set up to be that way. Go ahead.
Okay, charge the same to John Henry Smith, ID number 123-45-654321. That's the birth name and number as they appear on the long form certificate of birth. Or charge the same to, and then this is in all caps, John Henry Smith, 123-45-6789. That's the Social Security Trust as used by the public customarily to transmit debt to the estate. The latter form more closely mimics the customary business practice of public institutions. Notice a Patriot favorite, the exemption number 123-45-6789, is not mentioned, and this is in bold and underlined. It is strongly suggested that the reader does not consider this an invitation to start issuing acceptance. The contents of this article is merely scratching the surface regarding such transactions. In other words, there's people who have used this information to, to say, yes, they figured out how to tap into their account, they figured out the numbers, and they start to accept certain debts and have it paid off by their I guess they'd say their head trustee, Timothy Geithner. But this is a very slippery slope that could wind you up in jail, so you better really understand what you're doing. Exemption number. When the redemption movement began in the last millennium, our knowledge was considerably less. While we believed that a private account must appear on the books to receive the funds and property that had been confiscated in 1933, the identity of that account was elusive. The exemption number was a convention to represent that account in our paperwork. We now understand that the birth number is universally applied to all accounts, trusts, securities, and certificates associated with the infant's pledge of our one true commodity, our future labor. So it appears that the value of the exemption ID number has lapsed. Crediting. Regarding our set-offs, to credit is to apply the funds where desired. If we wish to credit the straw man, we might say, credit the same to John Henry Smith, all in caps, 123-45-6789, the Social Security number. If we wish to credit a vendor's account, we might say, credit the same to account number 123456. We might say, credit the same to John Henry Smith, in all caps, 123-45-6789, for further credit to account number 123456. Or we might say none of that. Charging and crediting. To specify an entire transaction, we might say, charge the same to John Henry Smith, that's just in capital J, H, and S, John Henry Smith, ID number 123-45-654321. Or credit the same to John Henry Smith, in all caps, 123-45-6789, or charge the same to John Henry Smith, 123-45-6789, or credit the same to account number 123456. A creditor might also choose to use none of these statements and simply rely upon our acceptance in the manner of a standard banker's acceptance. It all depends on the circumstances and one's understanding of the accounting.
Let me jump in 1 second. What she's basically saying there is the banks know this about these about the account that's in your name. When you were given your birth certificate, you were given ownership in your share in ownership of the United States. The United States is worth a lot of money. Therefore, you have credit in an account. When you write a check or when you sign anything, you are now saying to the Federal Reserve, release money from that account in my name, and the bank gets it, and the bank knows how to get it, and the Federal Reserve knows how to get it. The only one that don't know how to get that money out of your account is you. But every time you write that check and authorize that money is being charged to your account. So therefore, they keep making money, taking money out of your account, and we know that the way they do double bookkeeping. If there's a plus in bookkeeping, there's got to be a minus, and the minus and the plus have to match up. So if plus money came out, then there's minus money. So they hold you responsible for the minus money, and they're keeping the plus money. That's basically what's happening.
Again, readers are cautioned against undertaking brain surgery without a complete understanding of process, enforcement, and the consequences of their actions. Do you really wish to become another statistic who lost the family home, had her wages garnished, or wound up in federal prison for a couple of years? That's why we're saying this information was gathered at a lot of sacrifice and
right. A lot of people have,
a lot of mistakes.
Have made mistakes and gone to jail trying to learn this stuff. We wouldn't advise. We're not advising anybody to try to tap into that account, because if you do it right, you can tap into it. But you need one little mistake, and they can charge you with fraud. And quite a few people are sitting in federal prison who've tried this. I would prefer that you don't try to tap into your account, but you stop them from tapping into your account and running you into debt. That's the smart way to go. Don't try to get this money, but stop them from getting the money and using the money and then giving you the bill for it. That's what we want to do.
Okay, so along those lines, we want to also push for Birds of a Feather Media to be getting their radio station, because all of this is dependent on free speech and being able to reach each other in the community so that we're informed and we can do what Joe is talking about. It's not about tapping into these accounts. It's about stopping the scam and getting back to creating real wealth. For example, what we're doing here tonight with Randy and Felicia in the control room, me and Joe, we're creating something of value that we're sharing with our community. And on the internet, it's the kind of thing that drives traffic. But eventually, if it's jerked, you're going to see that it's going to become, Facebook is just going to become a commercial thing. So always, the First Amendment will always underpin any type of licensing that will go on with, any registering organization has to abide by the supreme law of the land. That's why you have to give your consent in court. You have to give your signature. All of these things means that the sovereign has enormous power.
And let me jump in here again. I want to, again, say none of this stuff that you've been hearing from us and quite a few other people on public access would you get anyplace else but public access. The media is completely controlled by the World Bank and by the Federal Reserve. And so the stuff that we're giving you and that other people are giving you all over this country on public access is the only place you're going to start hearing, you're going to hear this stuff. So we want all you people out there to really start supporting public access. And one of the things we've found out in doing our research is this particular public access station here in Woodstock, Time Warner Cable gives the town $80,000 every year for this station. And the town only puts $5,000 into this station. This station is jury wired together. There's only a few people that can actually know how this station is run because it's so bogus. Most of the producers that come in here have trouble getting this station up and running. If the town would put the $80,000 into this station could be a top-notch station. But because of, I would say, and this is just a guess on my part, a bunch of greedy politicians in the local town, this station is not getting the other $75,000 that would make this station a good station. And if this station falls and public access falls, all you're going to get from the regular media is the scam. They are not going to tell you how your pockets are being picked. They're not going to tell you how you're getting screwed in court. They're not going to tell you about legalizing about marijuana and how our prisons are full of nonviolent marijuana people. So many things that are coming out on public access. We ask all you people out there to start supporting public access, because without public access, you're not going to get truth. All you're going to get is propaganda, which is all you get on regular TV. So support public access, support Birds of a Feather for a radio station. We really do want to support them. Throw that up again, because I really do want to see more.
Right, public access shows can be pulled for no reason. The internet search engines can be manipulated, so we really need a solid community radio station. I'm appreciating that more and more. Shall I keep reading until we go out?
No, we're going to have to do another time to do part 3 to finish this up.
There's only one page.
Oh, there's only one page. Yeah, but we only got 2 minutes.
How many minutes do we have? 2 minutes? I can do it in 2 minutes.
Okay, we're going to finish this then.
The information in this article took many years and much pain and sacrifice to attain, and it only touches the surface regarding the birth scam. I'm but the Father's humble servant in this manner, no more perfect than anyone else. The Reclaim Your Securities Yahoo group reflects the calling I received to raise the level of discourse, to assist our extraction from commerce and return to the kingdom. A lot of these these are religious people that, they're not opportunists. I can't in good conscience give you canned answers or soundbite commerce. Those things are available at other groups. There are many people willing to encourage you to send out paper and let the chips fall where they may. I have a strong conviction based upon experience that such behavior is an invitation to a divine correction. In other words, don't do it. I hear your calls to teach you about security agreements, trusts, and treasury process and set-offs. The reality proven by this article is that postings and emails are inadequate for even one of those topics and potentially dangerous. Let's face it, thousands of patriots are more than willing to act boldly and then ask, what do I do now? Too often, those same people are willing to blame others for their decisions. I wish I could analyze everyone's situation. I wish I could wave a wand and provide instant enlightenment. All I can do is provide insight in the hope that I am elevating the dialogue. As I've mentioned, the Yahoo group was not intended to teach rocket science. Despite your desires, you cannot point your way out of the matrix by the numbers. Fortunately, the Patriot community has been blessed. We have been led from the Stone Age by courageous people. We owe them our gratitude. And then he goes on and he lists a lot of these people. You want to say goodbye?
Okay, we're going to say good night. This is Pot Talk TV, and normally we like to talk about pot, but this stuff has been so important. We're trying to break the people free and save America. So have a good night from Pot Talk TV, and we'll see you next week. Good night, people.
It was Monday.